All right, folks, we're back at it. Another edition of Inside Sports. Ryan Payne with you. Great to have you on board, folks. Whether you're watching or listening, we're on so many different platforms. Always nice to have you a part of this. And always great, too, to have any show that I do on any platform with a woman to my left, if I do it there. There we go. To the right, if you're watching. That's Molly Knight. And I got to tell you, before we go in the backstory, Molly, first of all, great to have you on. But the backstory is that I've had you on platforms before where I can hear you, but I've never had one where I can see you. So I do mean this. It's nice to see you finally.
Oh, it's nice to see you too. It's funny. I was just talking with a friend when the pandemic started. I think all of us were, or at least I could speak for myself. It was like, I would put on makeup. I would dress up. I'd do like as if I was doing like a traditional TV hit. And now I don't even know what month we're on. I'm just like, well, this is just how I am. This is what I look like at 10 a.m. on a Wednesday. So here we go.
I love it. I appreciate it. That's the way it is. We actually started to get in touch when the pandemic hit. I know we're still not out of this thing. I get it, like 20 plus months ago. So we're still at it. So this is great. I want to get into baseball with you, a bunch of other things as well. We chatted a tiny bit about it off and on for the last few days. But you've done a lot. For those that don't know of you, you've done a ton of work for The Athletic. You did stuff for ESPN. You wrote a great book. And now you have mollyknight.substack.com. So I just want to kind of give you the chance to, that was a tongue twister, to talk a bit about that and tell us what you do, even though I know what you do.
Yeah, so I have a newsletter called The Long Game. I worked for ESPN and The Athletic and had great, good experiences there. But I'm super interested in sports. Obviously, I'm a baseball-aholic, but I have other interests as well. And there was really no way for me to explore those while I was at ESPN or The Athletic. I'm interested in food. I read about mental health. I read about pop culture, movies, music, dogs. And so when Substack approached me as part of their writers program, they're kind of trying to lure some people to come over, and they said, yeah, we'll pay you to write whatever you want. I was like, well, that sounds great. So it's a little bit daunting because I have to write something when I hang up with you, but and I'm kind of like, what do I even want to say today? I don't even know yet, but maybe there will be some news that I can react to. Seems like the news of the day is that number one high school football player who flipped from Florida State to wherever, to Deion Sanders' FCS school. So that's a big news, but I'm not a college football reporter, so I'm not going to weigh in on that, but
You're very creative. Yeah, I know you're going to find something to write about. I love it. And the articles you put on there are great. And again, you don't just focus in on baseball, you focus in on other things as well. Let's talk baseball, because that is, again, your passion, my passion too.
Let's do it.
So the lockout, the strike, first of all, tell us the difference between, because I've had this discussion the last few weeks with people, between a strike and a lockout.
Right. So the lockout it's the owners doing it. The owners are saying we're because we are happy with the way things are going in the CBA negotiations, we are effectively locking you players out of our facilities. You can't come work out at Dodger Stadium or Yankee Stadium. You can't work with our trainers. You can't work with our hitting coaches, our fielding coaches, whatever you do. You can't come into the clubhouse or the weight room. And a strike is when the players are just it's the opposite. It's when the players are we're not coming to work because we're unhappy. So the owners didn't have to do a lockout. They could have continued to negotiate the CBA while through the winter, but they felt apparently as if this mechanism would put some pressure on the players to come to the table and maybe accelerate talks. They think that the lockout will actually help prevent loss of games when the season starts. I hope they're right, because I rely on baseball coming around every day. I hear your voice, Ryan, every morning, because in my car I have MLB Network's usually on if I'm not listening to my Spotify. So I hear you giving me all the times. All the times.
Yeah, I need it too. I do. I absolutely need that too. So
it's weird. It's weird not to have baseball news right now. Super weird that there are a bunch of free agents who aren't going to sign until, I don't know, maybe this all sets up for the greatest day ever, where
I'm thinking it will.
The lockout is over and it's March 31st and like the season's supposed to start tomorrow and like the Yankees sign Carlos Correa. It's like, what? You know, like it's, and everybody signs. Like it could be amazing.
And to that point, the CBA expired when it did, but there was an influx of signings, right? The amount of money that was handed out in the span of I don't know how many days, how many hours, because they all wanted to get things done. And then I saw the other day the Justin Verlander contract, the $50 million. It was finally approved. Well, you know, the Astros were okay, and Verlander was thinking that's fine, but baseball had to basically sign off on the whole thing. So I'm with you. If there's money, which there will be to be had, hopefully by, you know, if this thing is done within a month, that's great. But I am looking forward to all those signings because there's a bunch of free agents still available and really good
players,
right now.
Really good players. And I think that the sport should really think about having, because what happened, you're right, what happened that week when all those free agents flew off the board was awesome. It was like the trading deadline. It was so exciting. Like baseball was dominating the headlines. And it was a lot like what happens when the NBA, during NBA signings, when all of a sudden it's like, it's exciting for them. And I think baseball should think about a way to, I mean, not repeat a lockout situation, but a way to have like some kind of like frenzied week of signings, and I don't know, to get fans excited.
There's not a misconception. There's a thought with many people whenever this happens, whether it's a strike or a lockout in baseball, especially nowadays, because the amount of money that some of these guys get is astronomical. The NBA, the same thing. I get it. The NHL, a bit different. They're hard capped and all that stuff, so they have to stay underneath the 80 plus, whatever it is. But there's this conception from people that, well, why are they squabbling over money, especially in the last 20 plus months when everyone's going through, you know, what we're all going through. And then I was reading, well, part of the hiccup on this was that the tier 2 level and the tier 3 level players want to hit free agency sooner so they can make more money when they're at a younger age. And a lot of times free agency hits when you're 30. So how would you explain to somebody who looks at this and think, wow, there's so much money on the table, you make enough already, why you guys locked out, and why is this happening the way it is right now? We just lost connection with Molly for a second, but we're going to get her back. Again, Molly and I joined me. I believe she's in Los Angeles. We're going to get her back on in a second. The whole point that I was talking about was that Major League Baseball is in this pause, if you will, and there's a lot of money at stake. I totally get that. And there's free agents, but so many people. Look what happened in 94. In 94, fans of the Montreal Expos, they thought, and many did think, that was the best assembled team in the history of Major League Baseball. From what I gather, 1927 team, the Yankees was, but I wasn't around back then. So anyway, 94, going back, Molly's back with us. Don't know if kind of the last part of my question to you was, how would you explain to somebody who was looking at all the squabbling that they're back and forth with, when baseball is in a pretty good state and the amount of money, and whether it's TV deals or contracts, is very high?
Well, you're absolutely right, and it's tough because Max Scherzer, for instance, is one of the player reps on the executive committee of the players union, and he's over there talking about, you know, better salaries and this and that and pensions, and you know, he just signed a deal worth, he's going to get paid like $43 million a year. So you're like, what are you complaining about, Max? But he's not worried about himself. It's just the structure is so wonky that you know, very few players will make millions and millions of dollars. It's very small. Most players come up for a cup of coffee. Very few players even get 6 years service time to the point where they can reach free agency. And so many of these players, these young players, are so good, and their salaries do not reflect, the rookie contracts do not reflect their value. And so it's kind of weird that, like say a Juan Soto, a Fernando Tatis Jr., a Ronald Acuna. I mean, Tatis and Acuna signed massive. Oh, Acuna did not sign a massive deal, but Tatis signed a massive deal. Right. So, but they didn't have to, and those guys would be making like $500,000 a year until they hit arbitration. And these are MVP caliber players. And it used to be that players stomached that because they knew that when they got to free agency, they'd be paid. Well, now teams are like, wait a second. Your best days are behind you. We don't want to give you, you know, we don't want to pay you, hundreds, $100 million when you're 29, 31, whatever it is, because you're not going to be as good as you were.
Yeah.
So players are like, we have to figure out a way to switch the structure up so that people can make money faster. And that guys who are kind of in the middle don't get the shaft. So it's a question of trying to fix that process. And also it's janky how owners manipulate service, or teams manipulate service time. Mm-hmm. So because players don't become free agents for 6 years, so they're thinking we should just set an age where a player can become a free agent. Because what happens if you're in the minors until you're like 26 and something clicks, you change your swing, you get called up, you're hitting bombs, and guess what? You're not going to be a free agent until you're like 32. So what? I mean, that sucks.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So they're trying to switch the structure around.
Speaking of Tatis Jr., there was no truth to that rumor that he fell off a motorbike and he scraped himself. His dad was very quick to squash that. I think I'm correct.
I didn't even hear that rumor. What happened?
Well, there was a story the other day, and I was doing this as part of something else I do, and I read it, and his dad came out and said that Tatis suffered some scrapes and bruising on his legs and knees. And then I read more to it, and it said, there's no truth to the rumor that my son was on a motorcycle at the time of this. So I don't know, make of it what you will, but to me, if there's no truth to it, then why even say it? But
why even say it?
Speculation. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Please don't get on a motorbike, Tatis Jr.
Anybody.
He's definitely my favorite player. I mean, just to watch. I see him more because he's in the NL West, and I live. I'm
concerned with that shoulder, though, right? Like that's a concern.
I'm really concerned.
It pops out so much.
He is just like. I mean, he has everything. He's a telegenic presence. He kind of like, he's like baseball's like boy bander. Like I could see him in like One Direction or something, because he's like a beautiful smile. He's like attractive guy, and he's got that like that swagger, that personality, but it's never, he has a swagger without ever being, it's so clear that it's always, and it's always about celebrating and having fun. And it's not, like, he's not a jerk. Like he's not like in your face, all the time, which gets old for me. He's just having fun. Like he's like, he is the face of baseball, and I do not want him on a motorbike. So, now I'm going to have something new to worry about.
There you go. You can maybe write a bit about it, but no, actually don't do that.
Yeah.
That's concerning.
That's who kids like look at and want to be when they grow up. That's the guy.
Exactly. And one of the best moments for me during the season was at the All-Star game when Vladdy Jr. hit the home run and Tatis was mic'd up and Joe Buck was talking to him. And Tatis was talking about, went to his house, we had dinner, we had all this. And then Vladdy hits that bomb and Tatis's reaction was, he just looks to me. That was just awesome. And you talk about Tatis being the face of baseball. Let's talk Toronto, Vladdy as well, being one of the faces of baseball. The sky's the limit, Molly. I saw this video about a month or so ago. He's been working out. I think the moment the season stopped, maybe a week into it, he started to work out again. And the intensity, and to me, he knows he has the talent. I have such respect for athletes, women, men, who have a ton of talent. But I have even more respect for those that know they have the talent, but they work to get even better.
I think he's like a sneaky good athlete, right? Like I think he really improved. I mean, his athleticism on defense. Like I think people kind of saw his like body profile and thought, oh my gosh, this guy is like one of the best hitters on the planet. But maybe eventually he profiles as a DH. But like he worked his ass off, right, to like drop some weight, gain some flexibility, and he's like profiles as like I think slightly above average now, right? Like he's defensively. So, I mean, that was awesome to see. I really, if you had told me that Vladimir Guerrero, who was like the best or one of the best hitters of his generation, was going to have a kid who was even better, like I would not have believed you.
No,
I really wouldn't have. And it's like, and people ask me too, like people from Canada, like or Canadians or people from Toronto, like, oh, are you guys paying attention to Vladdy in the States? And it's like, yes, we are. He's really good.
I know. And we've had so many years though, when a lot of, the discussion in the States says, we leave Toronto alone. I know in 92, 93 it was great. 85 was great too, the late 80s. And then in the runs of 15, 16, but the excitement in Toronto is great. And not only that, I think it's so important for Major League Baseball. I know it's the only Canadian team. Would love to see
Yeah.
Montreal back at some point, but to
Would
have
love,
a Canadian team now being in the discussion of, you know what, they're almost there to get in and they're on the cusp of something really special maybe in 2-3
yeah.
years. To me, that's so important for the game of baseball.
Yeah, they're an exciting young team, right? And they've got like all these like awesome progeny, right? Like they got the little Biggio and they got the little
Yeah.
Bichette and they got Vladdy Jr. and
It's the DNA team. It's like the gene team.
people
It's
love
all in the
that.
genes.
The
Yeah.
gene team. That's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
People love stories like that
Yeah.
because they remember watching their dads play, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, they're in a tough division. Obviously, the Yankees are always going to be tough. The Rays are like they're just not going away, and the Red Sox surprised everyone this year. It's a tough division. I mean, the Orioles are awful, but
Yeah, they're terrible.
yeah, I would love to see Toronto, make the playoffs this year, like build some excitement, like showcase those young guys. Like I think it would be great.
Marcus Semien, they lost him. He had a great
Yeah,
season. Robbie Ray lost him as well.
yeah,
You can't replace a Cy Young winner. You can't replace a guy. Well, you
no,
can try to replace a guy who hits over 40 home runs. You mentioned we talked about the free agents still left, and you
yep,
talked about Carlos Correa. He's going to sign a massive deal. Do you think
yeah,
there's any possibility that he may
yeah,
join his old buddy George Springer in Toronto? I know the Jays will fork out a ton of money. They were in on
yeah.
a couple of other guys, but do you think that's possible?
I think I mean, look, Correa has been very, he's an outspoken guy, and he
Mm-hmm.
was not pleased with what the Astros offered, and he's been very like upfront of like, I want to be paid what I'm worth,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm not gonna just give some hometown discount or whatever. Like, f that. Like, if the Blue Jays come in hot, if they have the best offer, I mean, I think he'll go. Like, I
Yeah.
think that's his whole thing, and he should, right? Like, these players should be paid what they're worth. I
Right.
mean. He's it's tough. Like I was thinking, like who would I rather like between Corey Seager and Carlos Correa. I mean, they're
Mm-hmm.
similar players. They're both like 6'4" shortstops who are eventually probably gonna have to move off over to third base.
Right.
They both have had like some injury stuff, like, but a lot of it's kind of been fluky. I mean, Seager broke. I forget what he broke, but he got hit by a pitch and broke his hand or
Yeah.
broke something. And
Yeah.
Correa had that weird back thing that he somehow broke something when he got a massage. I don't even. That's very.
Freaky
Speaking of,
injury.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I didn't fall off a
Fall off my
motorbike.
bike.
Yeah, that was sketchy. So it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like either of these guys have like chronic issues. So I mean, hell yeah, like the Correa to the Blue Jays would be awesome for the
It
Blue
would.
Jays. I mean,
Yeah.
be
No, it
bad
would.
for the rest of the AL East.
It would be. And you mentioned the division too. It's so tough for
Yep.
Toronto to be in that division all the time. I want to get your thoughts on the Baseball Hall of Fame and the
Sure.
continued discussion of guys like Bonds not in and
Yeah.
McGuire and all these types of people because of PEDs and drugs and all that stuff. I was thinking the other
Yeah.
day that if, say, a family went to the Cooperstown and saw the Baseball Hall of Fame, and they go in and say a kid says, "Hey, Dad, how come the all-time guy who has the most home runs in baseball history is not in the Hall of Fame? How come that one who captivated the nation in '98 with
Right.
Sammy Sosa? How come he and those two aren't in the Hall of Fame? How come
Yeah.
Pete Rose isn't in the Hall of Fame? The all-time
Yeah.
like so. I'm
Weird.
not going to say it's not going to say it's tainted, but it's weird. So, do you see that ever happening? That guys like this will get in at some point because a lot of time's running out with them right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Pete Rose is ever going to get in. I think
No, I
I
don't think
think
so
he's
either.
burned so many bridges, and
Yeah.
I think that they were like trying to extend some olive branches, but he just can't help himself, and he's still, just yeah, he's not getting in. But honestly, like I don't have a vote yet. I'm a few years away from having a vote, but I would vote for Barry Bonds. Like I would vote for Mark McGuire. Like I would vote for
And
those
why?
guys. I mean,
Why?
they were the best players of their generation. I mean, you could look at Bonds' numbers before he started using steroids. Well, we think before he started using steroids when he was like on the Pirates and he was a different player and he was just
Right.
like he was hitting bombs and he was stealing
Yeah.
bases and he was awesome.
So
I
athletic.
kind of
Yeah.
just like I understand. I would be really frustrated if I had been a player in that era and I was clean and I lost out because I lost out on money and I lost out on a job because guys were using. I think it was baseball's fault. Honestly, I think that they knew what was going on and they were really slow to act. And I just it's just hard for me to think of a Hall of Fame without Barry Bonds. He's
Yeah, me
one of the
too.
best.
Yeah.
I think he's the best hitter I've ever seen. I mean, I didn't see Willie Mays. That was before I was born.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I mean, I think the best Manny Ramirez is like one of the best hitters I've ever seen. Like,
oh yeah,
I think these guys still would have been awesome without the steroids. So, and also the other reason is we don't know who was using definitively and who wasn't. And I'm sure there are guys in the hall who were using, and they just didn't get caught.
One of the ones for me who is always in the top of my list is one of the most athletic and gifted all-around players that I've ever seen play. Even those that didn't see him play, Ken Griffey Jr. to me.
Oh yeah.
He just, like you talked about Bonds with his days in Pittsburgh, and Griffey just did. He not only played the game at a level which was incredible, but he did everything the right way, right? Like, he was with his dad and they hit the home runs together with Seattle. And then I think the story is, I could be wrong with this, but when he retired, he was driving home from somewhere, an airport, a hotel, something in the middle of the night, and he called his agent. And all he said was, "I'm done." His agent said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Oh, I'm just done." And to me, if you go out on your own terms like that, so he ranks up there with me as one of the best of them.
That's the sweetest swing I've ever seen. And I talked about, like, Tatis was the kid that is the player that all the kids, like, want to grow up to be and pretend they are. But when I was a kid, it was Griffey. When I was in elementary school and middle school, like, that's who everybody wanted to be. People were like trying to, like, hit right-handed individuals were trying to
be like him.
Yes, because he was the best. I mean, he unfortunately, I mean, his career playing center and hurting his legs may have shortened his career, but he's still like, where is he all time on home runs? He's in the top 5, right? I mean, he's ridiculous.
Think so, if not just outside. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, he was, for sure.
5-tool guy, offensively, defensively, and he went out on his own terms, which I think is awesome. Let's shift gears completely, because we chatted a bit this week as well about what we're all going through in the last 20 some odd months, and we're still in this thing, and who knows if ever we will get out of it. And I know that you are very outspoken, whether they be verbal words or if you write them, anything like that, on those dealing with depression. And we've all been there. We've all had it at some time. We all deal with it in different ways, but I know that we all have it. You look at what athletes have been doing in the last number of months, specifically in 21. Naomi Osaka, recently Bianca Andreescu, dealing with her grandma on COVID, saying, "Look, my injuries are, like, I'm having a tough time." And other athletes, Dak Prescott, a while ago with the injury, and talking about his brother and all that stuff too. To me, the athletes have a great voice and a platform to use it to their advantage and to get people to understand. And we've heard this slogan all the time: it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. And Simone Biles too, for me. I mean, it was just heartbreaking to think that, the reason that she even competed in the Olympics was because she was worried that if she had retired, that the whole, all of the investigation into that awful Nasser's sexual assault of those athletes.
I'm sorry, I remember the name just because I did a story on him recently, but that's all. He doesn't deserve it. Anyway, carry on.
He doesn't deserve it. I mean, and for me, I manage, clinical depression. I had a really, I'm in therapy. I take Lexapro. Like, Monday was a bad day for me. I don't know why. I just had a bad day. And then, like, yesterday it was okay. Today's fine. Like, I don't know, like, none of us know why our brains work the way that they do. No, I think for me, I've had, more bad days in 2020 and 2021. I've had more bad days than I did in, 2018 and 2019. And I don't think there's it's any shock why. I think that this pandemic is terrifying. And even when we're not thinking, I'm fortunate enough to be in good health. I follow the rules. I wear my mask indoors, and those are the rules in LA. And we gather outside when we can, and I've been really safe. But I think it's just in the background, right? Like, all the time, like, worrying about, my mom, like, she's, she just texted me this morning and said, oh, she was at lunch over the weekend sitting next to her friend who just tested positive for COVID. So I'm like, I'm just worried, like, when is she going to get it? And it's very, we're all going through a lot. And I think the most important lessons I've learned, and to anyone listening who is, either struggling with depression and anxiety or has a loved one who is, you just got to try to give yourself some grace, and you just got to try to be kind to yourself right now. Because it's a lot that we are dealing with, and beating yourself up over it and feeling like, why am I sad today? I have a roof over my head. I have my health. My family's okay. I have a job. Like, and that's, to me, that's like where I will go sometimes when I'm having those bad days. And that's just not helpful. Beating yourself up makes it much worse. I think it's just like, for me, it helps to just try to know that it's like it's this, think of it like weather systems that come and go, and
that's a good comparison.
Just continue to like get on with my day as best I can, and just practice self-compassion. That's been the lesson I have to keep learning over and over again. And to reach out.
You have to talk, and I echo that 100%. And for the relation between sports and athletes and depression, for when I was growing up, even not so much recently, but a long time ago, just kind of dated myself. That's sad. Anyway, when I was growing up, I looked, and I'm sure you did as well, and many kids looked at these athletes that they were immune to. I know that's I know that's not the right word to use these days, immune, but you know what I'm saying? They're immune to anything that, say, you deal with, I deal with, anyone watching and listening deal with. So the fact that they come out and say, "Hey, we're normal and we deal with this. We make money. We travel. We're most notable, some of the most notable people on the planet." So that's okay. And to me, that's such an important thing. So I encourage all the athletes, like I know you do as well, to keep on doing what they're doing.
Well, also, of course, I thought that way. Like, imagine someone's an LA Laker and they're a millionaire and they have a beautiful wife and they have everything. And I think what you come to realize is that, like, there is, first of all, none of that stuff. Yes, money is good in that it can help you afford to get therapy or to get treatment or whatever, of course, and to have resources. But that stuff doesn't make you happy. You could have everything in the world and still be depressed. And also that there's more pressure, right? I mean, there's stuff that they go through. I mean, social media, I think, is wreaking havoc on all of our mental health, like, because there's always some critic, some asshole, someone who just wants to say something, and maybe you don't see it, and maybe you do. Maybe you're having a bad day and you see someone say, like, you suck, or LOL, you're an idiot, or whatever, and it hurts, and it shouldn't. It shouldn't, because it's like, you're not even in the arena. You're not even putting yourself out there. You're not, I don't want to, give them credit, but we're all human. Right. And so I think athletes are in a fishbowl, they blow a save and their mentions are just like, killing. Yeah. And I think it's great that they're speaking out about it. And I think that teams would be wise to have, and that's one of the things with this lockout that is just scary for me, is that, in addition to these players not having access to the medical trainers, they don't have access to the therapists, the psychologists, the wellness, whatever wellness stuff they do.
Yeah.
That's not great, So anyway, but yes, we are making progress. I mean, on the one hand, I think we are, as a world, we have more mental health issues than ever. But I think people are finally speaking out more and breaking that stigma. And I think Kevin Love, for me, really started a lot of that.
Yes,
As a big time athlete who just said, like, yeah, I'm dealing with the death of my grandparent and I'm having panic attacks and I can't play right now. And it's like, whoa, okay. Yeah. Like, that was, to me, the big one that I think started this conversation. And we've had a lot more since then. And you never want to hear someone's depressed or anxious.
No, not at all. But it makes you feel like us. It makes you feel, okay, you know what? There's other ones that deal with that, and they're going to go public and say, I've got to take a break, and that's
and getting, just like an injury, it's so imperative that you seek help immediately as soon as possible, and that you don't let it fester and you don't let it get, the wound get infected, right? Like you just. And if it helps, if I talking about it, if you talking about it, if Kevin Love talking about it, if it helps like one person make the call, tell somebody, tell a friend, tell clergy, tell their doctor, tell anybody that they're suffering. Like, it's worth it.
Yeah, you just need one. Molly, we're out of time. I'd love to do this again, and we will at some point. If I don't, I'll chat with you off air, of course, over the next few weeks. But happy holidays, and always appreciate the time. And we'll do this again. And you're great at what you do. So thanks again.
Oh, thank you. And both of our dogs stayed quiet. Amazing.
Absolutely, can't wait. They're going to erupt in any second right now as we're done.
Know.
Thanks,
Okay.
Molly. Thanks for listening and watching, folks, on Inside Sports. We'll see you again.